What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast. It is great to be back with you again this week. Super excited to talk to another amazing person, an amazing member of the Flipped Lifestyle community. And we are here to not only help you, but to help them take their online dream to the next level. And I love it when I get to talk to somebody that I've actually met in person. Patrick Portman, what's going on, brother?
Living the dream, my friend. How are you?
I'm just admiring this brick wallpaper wall. We had an amazing YouTube studio discussion before we came on air, and I am feeling very unconfident and inadequate in my background right now. All I've got is a painting, and you've got this brick wall wallpaper that is magic and looks like it was laid in the 1800s, and you've inherited it for your YouTube studio here.
There you go. Well, so many people use CGI, but I'm just not a big fan of CGI just because it's choppy. It just doesn't look professional. So this was my next best solution to use wallpaper to create the illusion of this authentic.
Everyone has to go to YouTube to check out this paper. So watch this interview on YouTube after you listen to it in your earbuds in the Flip Lifestyle podcast. But hey, Patrick, real quick, tell everybody about you, about your background, and about what you're doing online.
Sure. I am married to my wonderful wife, Misty, who is deaf. So that's a unique quality of merging a hearing person, all right, with a deaf person. Together, we have 5 children. I adopted 3, and she had 2. So when we got married, now we have a blended family of 5. I kind of blend 2 worlds together. I'm a licensed therapist by trade. I was in ministry for 16 years and felt like there was a huge part of the world that wasn't being reached. So went back to school to become a therapist. Growing up, you always have one line. Like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And there's like one line, right? I'm an engineer, I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher. Well, I felt like that was limiting me. So there's 2 sides of Patrick, if you will. There's the left brain logical side, which is the therapist in me. But I'm also a flight attendant. And that affords me to fly all over the world and meet great people. And in turn, because I have flight benefits, it allows me to fly to my clients wherever they are and not have that travel expense added to me being able to help them.
That's such a unique thing, man. Like a flight attendant, you kind of need to be a therapist, I bet, sometimes to be a flight attendant when some unruly person gets on. Has your therapist skills ever come in handy, like on the flight while you were in the air?
Every single day. I mean, the world of the flight world has really changed, particularly since 9/11, and even with COVID. You know, we used to primarily be customer service oriented. Here's your swoop waffle and your drink, and we'll see you on the ground. But unfortunately, we are living in this new world, right, where we've labeled them Karens. And my kids always ask me, Dad, what's the Karen story of the day? And unfortunately, people are unruly. I had to kick a passenger off on Saturday. It's not fun.
Wow.
But we have to keep it safe in the air, and that's part of our world.
I love to fly, man. I started traveling a couple years ago pretty heavily for my speaking career. And, I just really enjoy the process of it. I don't know why. My father-in-law, he hates flying because he flew for so many years, and maybe I haven't done it enough, but it never isn't great to me to be like, we are on a thing that is up in the air. And I'm looking down at everybody, at the ants and the little toy cars going down the interstate. And I always just sit and I'm a story guy. Like, I just love story. And I'm just thinking and looking at people like, what is their story? And I had this amazing leg where I had to go to Denver like 4 or 5 times in a row. So every other week I was going to Denver, and and I noticed after the second flight, I sat by this guy, the first flight, we talked, had a good time. He was like from Waco, Texas or something. And he was in Knoxville doing some kind of business every weekend. And then he was on the next flight. And then he was on the next flight. And he was on the next flight. And I just got to unpack his story, and we were talking. He's like, hey, Shane, hey, man. So I just love flying. I don't know. It's like we live at a time, man, where you can wake up in Los Angeles and go to bed in Kentucky. And it's not a big deal, And it feels like a day off to me sometimes when I'm traveling, because I get me a Kit Kat. I get some junk food. You know what I'm saying? I grab me a hamburger. I'm just sitting there watching movies. And I just love the flying. Does it ever get old as a flight attendant that you're up in the air? Does it ever get old?
Not really. I think that's what I enjoy about it, is every day I say it's a new adventure. And so you're with a different people. I mean, most people are locked in office every day. They sit and work with the same people, and it's the monotony of that. Every day I have 50 different faces every hour to two in front of me, and every different walk of life. And you get to learn some, great experiences and interesting stories, and be able to help people. People are traveling for funerals, people are traveling for business situations. And so there's where the therapy comes in, is consoling people. Or our flights don't have internet. So in this technology age, parents are coming on with their kids and they're expecting that. And so it's, how do I manage my kids for this flight? And so it's helping people resolve their issues even on the flight. Fly to the coolest places that people have never been in, and you get to see mom and pop shops. And so the travel experience is worth it all.
Yeah. What made you want to be a therapist? Maybe just give us a little overview of your background. Like I know that people usually go into therapy, have overcome a lot of challenges and things like that themselves, and they're trying to give back and help other people. So tell me about that, and then we'll dive into your online side.
Sure. Well, I was in ministry as a pastor for 16 years. I think I've always had this desire or this skill set to help people. But as a pastor, I think people think, oh, going to talk to your pastor, he's going to solve all the problems of the world, right? We just have this pastoral counseling, mantra. The reality is my one course in marriage and family counseling in Bible school was just not
woefully inadequate. Right.
That's the word. But I grew frustrated. Like, where do you send people as a pastor, right? Like in the olden days, we had the yellow pages, or we had what we call blue pages, right? Where, these people are labeled Christian counselors or Christian therapists. And just because they had the word Christian next to it didn't mean they were even faith-based at all. And so you have, members of your congregation that are going through these huge trying circumstances, and they weren't getting help because they're just, particularly in rural areas, there's just not a lot of, counselors out there. So I just felt like God was saying, hey, Patrick, it's time that I retool you. So I went to Liberty University and got a degree in Christian counseling. And then I got the opportunity to go to Harvard, which was like, poof, right? Like, who gets to go to Harvard and study neuropsychology? Because I'm one of those sick individuals that loves the brain, right? And the fascination of how God designed it. When I graduated, I didn't want to just open a practice. I didn't want to just, sit on my couch and let's talk about it, because I really wanted to help so many in the community. And I wanted to be able to do it a global thing. So there's where I opened Lifetools as a way of saying, if you have internet access, you can get the same treatment that someone has in the city, and have more tools and resources available to you. I wanted to help pastors out to say, now you have a solution to help your members of your congregation, and just do something different that wasn't already being done.
That is fascinating. We had a really bad situation with my son when he was little, where he was being mistreated at a daycare center. And this lady was locking him in a bathroom for in the dark for hours at a time. There was a lot of other things going on at this place for punishment. It wasn't like sexual abuse or anything. It was just punishment, for doing something that they deemed wrong. And, he was really little at the time. It caused a lot of physical problems. He developed a condition called encopresis, and where he couldn't control his bowels for a little while. And he became from energetic to quiet, kind of reserved, within himself. It was a really difficult few years, and it was really, really, really hard living in a rural Southeast Kentucky town to really find someone to help him. We had to drive about 30, 40 minutes just to even get to a Christian counselor to help us overcome that challenge. Same thing with I'm a big believer in therapy and counseling. Y'all need somebody to talk to, people. I'm telling you right now, don't look in that mirror and ever say, I don't need that. I hate it when people say that. You do too. We're all messed up, and we all have trauma. But even finding someone for us, I had to go online to find a good counselor. Just couldn't find anyone I vibed with within range of our town. So this is an amazing situation where you have the access to the internet, where you can provide counseling, a specific kind of counseling for anybody out there. So your website is called lifetools.org. Right. What is lifetools.org? What does it look like? How does it work? Is it courses? Is it training? Or is it literally it's counseling? This is a coaching kind of thing where you're working with people one-on-one?
Sure. Well, Lifetools is not counseling. Counseling, of course, is sitting with a live person. But
Yeah.
I wanted to create training and resources to help the average person and to also help therapists. Unfortunately, the counseling world has not in line with the medical world. And what I mean by that, if you're going to be a doctor, right, every doctor has a foundation to medical training, but then they go and become a specialist, right? You're going to be a cardiologist, you're going to be a urologist, whatever it is, so that your primary doctor, if it's out of their scope, sends you to the specialist. In the area of counseling, we don't have those levels of specialty. So it's very difficult if someone's looking for something to find that. So I spend my time finding specialists in the field and interviewing them in the field to make sure that we're bringing that level of care to each person, no matter where they are in the world. Lifetools is kind of like TurboTax, right? TurboTax offers 3 different programs, right? You have TurboTax for the individual, you've got the TurboTax for the contractor, and then you've got TurboTax for the commercial. Well, Lifetools is designed the same way. We have a product for an individual that can go through on their own. If you want to do, I don't call them counseling, I call them tune-ups, right? You take your car to get a tune-up, or you take yourself to be a tune-up, right? And if you want to train yourself in an area that, whatever your obstacle is, you can go on there, and Lifetools has a whole toolbox of different training and resources on a plethora of topics that you can go and pick. What's nice is we're subscription based, so it's one size fits all. You're paying for one price, and you can keep going on whatever topics. If you want to take a parenting class, if you want to take a class on boundaries, if you want to take a class on whatever it is, you go through these very short modules. The modules are video based, so there's about a 5 to 10 minute video. And then there's the engaging piece that helps you to make sure that you're retaining the information. There's a group discussion piece, and there's what's powerful is you can go through and learn and be connected with people that are going through similar issues with them that you are experiencing, and be able to have feedback and have a whole community of people that are supporting you on the journey and being able to share things that they went through. They say, hey, my kid wasn't sleeping at night, and this is what we did. And so it creates this giant community now that helps you to see you're not alone and get the answers that you are. I feel like you mentioned about going to see counseling. Men as a whole for years were stubborn for getting help.
Gosh, 100%. I still have so many friends that won't do it. And I'm like, y'all are crazy, man. Give me my next therapy session tomorrow. Let's go. Right. Because I know I'm going to be better after it.
So this allows them to do it in the convenience of their home. Nobody has to know that they're online because you can access it from your phone. You can go on your lunch break at work and say, you know what, instead of just sitting around doing absolutely nothing, I'm going to do something to better myself. And I'm going to take a quick module on my break, plug my earphones in, my earbuds in, and take this quick module on there. They're drip style. And what I mean by that is once you finish one, then the next one loads and it just keeps flowing. Because what we found is people, when they first started, it was just overwhelming. Like, oh, there's 3,000 courses out there. Like, wow, this is too much. So you take the first one and it just keeps adding more on there.
I used to really be against drip content in the beginning when we started memberships, but sure. I learned something, though, after helping people, like so many people. Each individual online business niche is going to require a different approach, whether it's drip or wide open like we do. Like we have the library model, like you can walk in the library and get whatever you want. But that's because people are coming in at different places in their online business journey. But for this, I really see the benefit of a drip because this person's coming in to like you said, you've got this expert or you've got you, they're taking this module and they need to watch it from the beginning and they need to do it in sequential order. So for everybody out there, if you're looking at your online business, there really is no right answer. It's what's best for your student is what's really going to decide if you're going to drip content or leave it wide open. Yeah.
So we have 3 products. So the individual product is for you. You can go on there as an individual and take whatever you want. We have a second product, which is a family product, right? So particularly like in the area of addiction, people come to me and it's like, how can I help my loved one with this? So the family membership allows you to understand that particular field from a family perspective. So if you have a loved one that's battling substance abuse, what is substance abuse and how can I effectively help that? If I have a child that has ADHD, okay, what is ADHD and how do I help my child? We get so much times crippled by these diagnoses, right? Like my child has whatever this is that we then don't have solutions. So the family membership is designed to help educate on that condition. And then as a family member or friend, how do I support this individual that's going through this condition? So the focus is just slightly shifted on that.
Are these trainings you doing the training sometimes, or are they these other experts and specialists that you're bringing in to make sure you've got someone like really into a topic? Like which,
Yes.
or is it a little of both?
It's a mix of
Gotcha.
both. So again, I brought in a child psychiatrist, and again, she went to some, we did a whole series on what are kids facing during this COVID season and how you can help them through it. And, we're constantly adding new content all the time. What's nice is there's a feedback feature. So our members can write in to say, hey, I'd love to have training on a specific topic. And then again, we go out and find experts in the field and interview them and put together these modules. Because again, therapists are limited by their licensure, and they're also limited by their area of expertise. And so my goal with Lifetools is to really find experts and bring them in. Yeah. Bring them in so that, again, you can sit in your living room or your bedroom or your office and get the same thing and not have to fly to a particular part of the country.
And the third tier is for the counselors. Is that what you said? The third product is for counselors themselves.
For counselors, because the reality is, if you're my client, you're going to meet me once a week, maybe twice a week for an hour. That is very limited on amount of time and what I can accomplish. And when you're hurting, you want this fixed like now. So the beautiful thing about this program is therapists can assign you homework, if you will, with modules, and now have topic points to bring up in discussion in our individual sessions. So particularly sexual abuse, people and particularly men are very cautious to present that. But as a therapist, if you've been abused, particularly sexual abuse, that's a huge wound that I need to address before I can move on with addiction or other things. But the reality is a therapist is only as useful as the information that he or she has. So what I have found with these modules is people feel more confident of interacting with the computer and putting that information there. And with this program, the therapist then gets access to all of that information so they can then deal with that in an individual counseling session. So I find a lot of therapists are very excited about this program.
What I'm hearing is it's like, some people will look at this and go, well, how are we serving these different avatars? How are we getting 3 different avatars? But it's really not. It's really all helping the person who's struggling. You're just attacking it from different angles, whether it's the individual who has decided to get help, the family member who's trying to help, or the counselor that's being paid to help. The product is still just one thing. It's this you and the specialist library, modules, activities, whatever it is. So there's only one product, really. Right. It's just, and it's not even different avatars. It's it's the same avatar. It's the person who's struggling. We're just using these 3 roads to them, whether it's themselves, their family, or the counselor. So that's a very creative way to build all this. Do they have different price points, or is it like one price point for anybody?
One price for each product. So the therapist program is slightly more just because they're allowed to load their clients into the system. So it's a little bit more than the individual and the family program. But as you said, really, it's only a perspective issue. They can work individually, but they can also work in tandem together. So let's say the individual is dealing with substance abuse. The family member can hold them accountable to say, okay, you said that you wanted this help, so let's do this together. And the modules can go and sync together so that the individual is taking the same course that the family member is, and now they can discuss it together. The individual's learning and how they can help themselves, and then
even the counselor could be involved at the same time.
Same time. And what's nice is if they're all syncing together, there's HIPAA forms to give permissions to share information. But once the family members can add feedback to the therapist to say, hey, here's what's going on. And that is valuable. That's not really out there for the family member to say, this is what's going on in this person's life, where the individual may not be reluctant to share that. And so it's a really important system.
So what are the price points right now?
Right now, it's $49 a month, but with a coupon code, they can get it. All of these have a 7-day free trial, so you can try it for 7 days. If it doesn't work
What's
for you.
What's the counselor? Because the counselor costs more, you said. What's the counselor's?
$99 a month.
Perfect. It's simple.
Still a steal.
This is a really cool example of what's possible with an online business, because it can scale the unscalable, right? You know what I'm saying? And counseling is a problem. You can only meet with so many clients. You can only meet in certain settings, person, on Zoom, whatever it is. And there really isn't that external thing. And I actually have some experience with this. Like one of the best things I ever did in therapy was I was doing a lot of work on empathy, right? You know, as you're married, as a spouse, as your kids get older and they have like emotions and wants and needs, and those don't always align with yours, you got to have some empathy. And I was not very good at empathy for a while as my kids were transitioning from little kids to teenagers. You know what I'm saying? And it was really cool to have like the external part of I got to talk to someone, but then someone gave me activities, books, workshops, things like that. So this is a very powerful example of what's possible with an online business. But let's talk about getting people in it, because really a business is only as good as the people we can get in it. We've got to get more people into this thing so they can use this powerful resource and this powerful product you've created. I don't want to get fixated too much on product, because I think that entrepreneurs in general do that too much, right? We have to always remember, as online business owners, as entrepreneurs, as leaders who are serving a group of people, that if we become too fixated on product, the people who have nothing stay with nothing. You know what I mean? Like products at a point are like, those people don't have anything. Our customers don't have it. They're waiting for us to go find them. And I've really found, man, no matter what the business is, 75% of your time should be finding your next client. You know what I'm saying? Especially when your product gets to a certain point, because there's no way, you can always make it better. We should always be looking at fulfillment, looking at our products, surveying our people, but we've got to make a transition where we're like, it's all marketing all the time. We are all marketers at the end of the day. So how are you marketing this right now? What is working best? What has not worked? And what's the plan going forward? And let's see if we can develop something to start pouring tons of people into the top of this product.
Sure. Two branches of marketing. One, you always mention about using an app that reaches your avatar. So I use LinkedIn just because most therapists are on LinkedIn. Most clinical directors are on LinkedIn. So I target clinical directors because clinical directors are the ones that implement programming for their practice, right? So I use LinkedIn. It's super easy to just search for clinical directors, and it just gives you this long, directory. I do a quick introductory. With that, and then
are you posting on LinkedIn? Are you doing articles or things like that? Like, are you doing?
I post on LinkedIn all the time, but then I also reach out to them individually.
Okay.
Something I kind of stumbled in on the flight world is I developed a nickname of Papa Patrick, right? So I'm a more seasoned flight attendant.
You do have 5 kids, so Papa Patrick is very fitting, right?
So I'm always, most flight attendants are coming to the world 1920, and so it's a whole new world. So Papa Patrick helps them, and I like that branding. Papa Patrick is the one that educates. That if you have a problem, you go to. Against my wishes, if you will, I started a TikTok account. When TikTok opened, I was to my children. I was like, you are not being on TikTok. TikTok is horrible. Let's not be on TikTok. But I found out like a lot of my avatar was on TikTok. So Papa Patrick is on TikTok. And every day I post a 3-minute just feel on a different topic of overcoming depression, overcoming anxiety. And I can't tell you how powerful, those are. People will, and I'm in my kid's basketball game. Oh, you Papa Patrick. Oh, I saw your thing on TikTok. That's so awesome.
That's awesome.
So, TikTok becomes my gateway, if you will, to help introduce someone to a topic that maybe they need to talk about, but they need to be pushed into it. And then at the end of every TikTok video, it links them back to the Lifetools website so they can find more tools and resources on that particular topic.
Have you seen Daniel and Nicole Whitworth's TikTok training in the Flip Lifestyle community? Yeah, good. Yeah. Yes. Connect with them. They're really good at it. She's crushed TikTok it doubled her business like in a few months, So TikTok can definitely be powerful. I hate TikTok too, man. I'm like old school, and I'm still hashtagging on Twitter. I don't know what I'm doing. And like my kids, man, they're all about some TikTok, dude. And it is fascinating. I know people that are blowing it up on attention there, man. So it's really whatever works. That's what we all got to remember. There can be no prejudice against platform. In online business, you got to throw mud on the wall, and whatever hits your audience is way more important than your preference, I need to probably do more on TikTok. I think I'd have fun with it. Actually, my brother tells dad jokes daily on TikTok. He just has a TikTok and he tells dad jokes, and it's actually quite hilarious. But his kids think it's the greatest thing ever that he can get on there and tell his cringy dad jokes. What about your own? This is what I would call other people's platforms, OPP. Like, what about your platform? Do you have a podcast, a blog, or a YouTube channel?
Yes, to all of those.
Okay,
They're kind of linked to all of those. During COVID, my wife and I launched a TV show called Tackling Life. And there's where we interviewed someone that was overcoming a life obstacle and using the TV show to kind of reach more people. That's, of course, expanded the branding and allowed us to, again, focus on some of these topics from Lifetools by interviewing that. That's kind of expanded now with YouTube. So you can go on YouTube and watch all the Tackling Life episodes. As I said, my wife isn't deaf, so Tackling Life is also in sign language for the deaf community to watch and learn and grow. And so, again, you can go to YouTube and watch all of those episodes.
And Patrick, if you're not watching on our YouTube channel, Patrick is signing right now as he's doing this. So right, you can go see that for sure.
So yeah, and then Lifetools is expanding right now with a new online community called Tackling Life, and that's tacklinglife.org. That'll be launched in another week or two. That's going to be, again, a faith-based just support group of people that whatever your issue you're going through, whatever obstacle you're going through, to know that you're not alone. I think that's one of the biggest feelings that people experience is I'm going through whatever this is, and I feel like I'm alone. And just saw a need in the area of counseling, and I saw a need in our community to create the support group. We've got Facebook and Twitter and all these different genres, but we don't have a support network.
It's a big deal, man. I was in a mastermind, probably the best mastermind I ever went to. Actually, it was just everybody in there was just doing huge businesses, but it was really unique because everybody was an offline kind of business. It wasn't really my normal peeps that I hang out with. It was really, really good. Just a bunch of great men. Awesome guys. And it was really, we were talking about some things like AI and Chat GPT and all these things that we're seeing online right now. Sure. And, one thing that we have really always been about is community and memberships and, being a part of something bigger than yourself. And with Flip Lifestyle, it's always been designed that way. Like it's a bunch of people all hanging out together doing the similar thing. And I think if anybody out there that's doing anything online that's not building a community, you're going to get replaced. Like content is going to be a dime a dozen. ChatGPT can write better blog posts than you. AI is going to make better videos than you someday. But it's the people that are connecting people online, because we're always going to need human connection. And right now we don't have it. That's what's the differentiator. Communities are the ultimate end game of anything you can create, or support groups. Like you said, these are group efforts you're in lifetools.org. Like it's a group thing that you build. Now, something I'm hearing, I love listening to people's marketing efforts. You're definitely doing the consistent, prolific thing correctly, right? How has growth been, just in a nutshell, so far? Is it just kind of slow going, just getting it out there? We're just kind of ramping up. Like, what's happening with the growth right now?
It's been slow in that I've had to establish the need for this. We have counseling. Everyone knows the need for it. But because this is so different, because there's not a lot of this out there, I've had to establish the need.
Let me stop you right there. Okay. So this is actually an interesting marketing thing, because that's my main focus of life is I study marketing and stuff like that. But like, it's never good in your market. If you ever feel this in your marketing, like, wow, I really feel like I'm trying to establish need for this in my product. I'm looking in the wrong pond. I'm searching in the wrong place. There is a disconnect, because the goal is to find the need and go there. Right. So and this happens when you're doing everything in the right order. You throw mud on the wall, you put everything out there, you see what's working, you see what's not. And when you feel that, it's almost like the little board games where you flip the arrow and it spins around and it points at a number. And then when your kids aren't looking, you push it to the 3 because you wanted 3. You know what I'm talking about? It's like you can nudge that arrow, right, if you need to. that is usually my clue whenever anyone tells me that there's a nudge that needs to happen. And I heard something and I circled it, and I didn't say anything about this earlier. I was just like, I'm going to see if Patrick makes it back to this, because this was a mission connection thing. You've told me that you go to LinkedIn. You told me you go to TikTok. There's people paying attention. The content's valuable. We know that, but that sometimes doesn't mean anything marketing wise. You're going after the counseling directors. You're going after the counselors. You're doing these things. But what I heard you say in the very beginning of this is, hey, I realized a need. These pastors didn't know where to send their people. These pastors and these churches weren't prepared to help their people. They have a need. These people are coming every week for the pastor to solve their problem, but they don't know what to do. So I actually did. I circled it and I wrote us 2 stars beside it earlier. And I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna wait and see if Patrick makes it back here. Okay. And that's what I've not heard in the marketing plan is like, if the pastors are the ones that aren't equipped to do this, and they have the people that clearly are coming to them for something like this.
Sure.
Is that where you need to go? Like Dave Ramsey does this the best. Like he realized that the church has the worst money mindset on the planet. The church doesn't understand poverty, wealth, biblical principles with money. And he said, man, that's the people that are suffering. I'm just going to go get, Financial Peace University into churches. And, every week across the country, there's hundreds of thousands of people, tens of thousands of people learning financial literacy in a biblical way. Right. And I'm wondering, like, I don't hear that in your strategy. It might be there, right? It might be there a little bit, but I wonder if there's a little nudge of the arrow that needs to happen here. And forget about like counselors go to church. Like maybe the pastors know some counselors that need some help with their people in the congregation, right? So I wonder if there's a disconnect here in the marketing and the mission, and it's a little too professionalized. And your mission was to bring this stuff to people that don't have it. Dude, you can run ads to rural areas. You can run ads right at pastors and churches, and that might be like a ripple effect. Like if you can get that one pastor for one church to have a thing, or maybe you even develop some kind of little curriculum you could give to pastors for free that they could do with their audience, their small groups. That might be a great gateway into getting the information for people to do that. Like what Dave Ramsey does is this. I know some people that work for Ramsey, and like I've got to ask a lot of questions about how they do things, and I kind of have looked at them and studied them. I like the way their business works. So he will go, for example, to a church, and they'll get a good financial peace university class. He charges, but let's say you have a small group Bible study you could give them or something. I don't know. But like they go there, and what happens is all those people sign up on Dave Ramsey's email list.
Okay.
On his thing. So now it's like one church created 20 new leads. Does that make sense? Of course, he has other products, other services, other tools that he can sell to those people. Would that work? Could that be something that you're not thinking about? Is you know that world, you were in that world.
Sure.
How do you we have a lot of people in our community. Paul Clifford, a great guy. He markets to churches. He's got like 400 churches. He does tech support to help them get on Facebook every week to spread their message. How does that blend in? Where did that go? Because that seemed like that was the original mission, and it didn't kind of make it to LinkedIn. You know what I mean?
True. Well, yeah, it's a good point, because one of our modules is on identity, and every pastor is looking, how can I get volunteers plugged into ministry, right? And so there's entire modules on spiritual gifts. Who am I? What do I have? And then it goes through, here's different areas you can serve in the kingdom of God. And so just that module alone would be extremely valuable to pastors. So they can put all of their congregations through.
Tell me more about that. All right, so we've got one for spiritual gifts, one for identity. Give me 3 more modules that you've already got that would be very valuable to a pastor, if there's anything there. Or even, it could even be a podcast episode or a video you did free. It doesn't matter. Like, do you have any other things that would go well with the church stuff?
Well, I would say the biggest foundation of any of our society right now is relational intimacy. We do not train people on how to build relationships. So you see that. Divorce right now in our country is at 70%. And we acknowledge that it's there, but we're not stopping to say, shoot, we need to do something about that. So how many churches have thousands of people that are struggling right now with relationships, either finding someone, or they're in a toxic relationship, or they're in a toxic marriage. So just the course on the foundations of relational intimacy, it would be extremely valuable to any pastor to say, the person's coming, hey, we're going through relationships issues. Well, I want you and your spouse to go through this module on relational intimacy. And now gives them a core to look at what components are they missing in their marriage? What components are they missing? So there's all kinds of stuff that churches can benefit from.
All right, so you got identity, spiritual gifts, intimacy. What's one more? What's one more thing a pastor would be really like? It'd be cool if a pastor or a small group leader even could get a hold of it for the church, like something in the thing now that you could pull out.
Is overcoming grief. I mean, we're losing loved ones all the time. So we're, as pastors, you're doing funerals all the time. And that's one of the most awkward things is someone coming to you, hey, pastor, I need you to do the funeral. And there's how do I help this person? We always have the canned response, oh, I know what you're going through. The reality is we don't. And so giving that person a module on overcoming grief and helping them, because we all express grief in a different way. And so it's helping that person.
Can you feel the passion overflowing from you now? Can you feel this? It's different than the way you're going to listen back to this podcast. And you're going to listen to the first way you explain this thing. So here's what happened in my arc here. You talked about being a minister, talked about bringing this mission to these places that can't get it. You talked about helping pastors because they're not equipped. And then it was kind of like, okay, here's the bulleted list to that. That's what it was like. And now you're like, oh man, we need grief. We need to bring it to the people. We need it's pouring out of you now because this is more connected to the mission. When I go to Lifetools, I'm looking at lifetools.org right now. And I see not mission. I see what it is. I see facts. I don't see stories. Like I see sometimes we need to overcome life's challenges. Lifetools Canvas plus support from therapists and family equals faster recovery. Join our community. I don't feel the passion on this page, just in the up leveling of even just the thing like a place for churches to get help. Something like mental health for the modern church, right? Like I don't feel that pouring off the page. It feels very factual. Of course, it's very good. It's beautiful. I see a lot of inclusion. There's, the pictures are amazing. Everything looks correct, but there's not passion pouring out of it. Like I just heard in the last four things. And like, imagine if you had, sometimes I'll call this with my clients, the moat. Sometimes we create an amazing product and we put it in this castle, the city on a hill, and then we build a wall around it. Then we build a moat around it. And then it becomes, we know how awesome it is, but we don't let some of that out. There's kind of an open hand you have to have with your content, right? To let it out into the world. And I'm just wondering if the passion and the mission and the marketing could be more aligned. And I think that's what's slowing you down a little bit here. Like if I came here and I knew this was it's for everybody. We can always say that about everything, right? But really, it's for our mission and our passion. And our mission and passion was, at the beginning of this, was get this to places where believers, it seems like pastors, it seems like leaders, elders could be equipped to help them. Family members that could help their family members. Counselors could dive into this. And then if we had a product or something that was like, hey, we got a free 4-week study for your church. Your whole church can do this. Like right now, my church just spent $1 billion on Rooted. We're doing the Rooted study. And it's a huge church-wide effort. Like every person in my church, and I go to a church that has 1,000 people every Sunday, has a Rooted book, and their kids have a Rooted book. I mean, that's 1,000 people that know about Rooted now. And I'm just wondering if a little nudge of the arrow back to that original mission, original focus, getting really clear on probably the who. I think your who needs to be tightened up a little so you can make better decisions with your marketing and being more overt with this stuff. But man, if I was a small group leader and I could be like, this week we're going to do identity, and I had a series of questions plus a module I could watch with my group, spiritual gifts, inheritance, and grief, intimacy. That's a pretty powerful 4-week study, dude. And comes from counselors, comes from experts. How easy would that be to send to a pastor? And they all of a sudden flood that out there, man.
So there's scriptures all in there.
That's what I'm talking about. See, and if I went to your page right now, that's an interesting thing you just said. Inside the moat, It's all faith-based. There's scripture. I'm sure if I dig, I'm going to find more of that here. But on the first glance, the 7-second look that we get from everybody that finds our stuff, I don't see that immediately.
That's good.
Right? So I wonder if we could reconnect to the actual mission. You know what I mean? And then reconnect to the actual avatars, believers who are having mental structure, believers who are counselors, believers who can have family members that are maybe not believers, but they need help. Right?
Sure.
And then how do we get this in front of more people at once? Like maybe it's just a shift in the focus of the branding a little bit, you know?
Sure.
That would be awesome. I think you could do that. That could even affect TikTok and LinkedIn.
Oh, sure.
You know, I mean, because you could spread that through TikTok. Do you read a Bible verse on your TikTok or anything? Like at the beginning of everything? Do you pray at the end of your TikTok? Do you do anything like that?
We'll incorporate it in there. We're adding a lot more content to it. But yeah, I have my phrase at the end: "You are loved, you have value, you have purpose." We did a whole module on that, what God says about you. So it's kind of building this momentum, on that.
Even something minor, like in a shift of focus, like Avatar, like originally, like when we did our original Avatar, we only talked about having small children because we only wanted people with small children to join because we were not equipped yet to coach other people. We had to grow. Sure. But even that last little saying, like you said, from a marketing standpoint, like, you are what, say that again. You are what? You are what? You are what?
You have value. You have purpose.
All you got to do at the beginning of that is God says you are loved, you are valued, you are purpose. Does that make sense? And like even kicking off, even the mental decision of I'm at least going to say a Bible verse, not read it out loud. If the last thing in every TikTok was go read John 3:16, go read Proverbs 20:22. Like you don't even have to read it. It's just tell them to do it. Like you say something, you're like, go read that. Just little nuggets like that shift the avatar and it bends the curve toward that. And all of a sudden it becomes a lot more relevant because I don't want to go get support. I want to go get support from fill in the blank. Like people don't want to go learn about online business. They want to learn about online business from someone with similar values.
Sure.
That's why some people will go to us and some people will go to people like from New York that are single and running around and, doing the jet flying thing. Right. So I think there's a little disconnect from mission here that would really, really help your marketing and really help your focus.
No, that's good. Because one thing I forgot is I had a youth pastor ask me to come do a presentation on parenting in a digital world. And so we used that material and created a whole course out there for churches because youth pastors are struggling to say target youth pastors, target churches, they have budgets, they got to spend them just like a government would or just like a business would. And it hits out harder. Now, I would say whenever you're doing this kind of strategy, you have to get leads from it. Like it's not just targeting the packs. This says targeting. We're targeting the pastor. That's not what I mean. It's like I am intentionally talking to certain people, right? Like it's like I want the youth group to do it, but I want every parent to sign up for my email list. That's kind of a portal that they have to go to get their stuff, right? Because that lets you then say, all right, you did my thing. How can we help your family? How can we help your children? How can we help your marriage? How can we help your thing? This I don't know what to call it. Cascading marketing strategy, I guess is what this is. A lot of people just go to the individual. That's fine. We do that too. But I've learned that if I go speak in a stadium and 9,000 people hear me speak, someone's going to come forward and like what I do. Right. Okay. So there's a cascading approach to this that I think will help you multiply faster. Also, like your podcast, make it for pastors and youth people, like at least make it for believers, right? Where they know it overtly, put it in the Christian category. You know what I mean? Just to get in front of more people. And when you go in and do ads, like you can't target, I don't think by religion, they don't let you do that, but we can demographically build a profile. Like everyone that likes Chris Tomlin, Priscilla Shire, only pick Christian influencers, right? Or only pick like famous pastors, like 30 famous pastors in an ad group. Right, that you can go after online. You can build out pretty strong profiling to get in front of the right people. Messaging is everything here, dude. Absolutely.
I want this to grow, man. I am such a believer in mental health stuff, dude. That like the Christians don't get it sometimes. The secular world is better at this than us. I think. Even today, my mom and dad, man, they're like They don't understand why I go to a therapist. They just don't understand it. Like nothing's wrong. And I'm like, really? Come on, guys. And it's a powerful thing,
Sure. Well, that's why I use the word tune up, because people understand that word. You take your car to get a tune up, and anybody knows if you want your car to last longer, you need to maintain that car and continue with the tune ups. And so using that phrase, I think, helps people to understand that God built our bodies the same way. And as the more we get tune ups, the more it's going to help us last longer.
And that's a classic example of product thinking. You're like all your language. It's like when I was listening to your product development, when you were laying that out, I was like, checkbox, that's perfect. Yep, that makes sense. I totally understand that. Anyone who reads that would understand it. Boom. When you started talking about LinkedIn and TikTok and the who questions, it was much more like disparate. It was much more dissolving out into the ether. Like, okay, LinkedIn, but who? Right. Counselors. Really? I mean, like, it didn't feel connected properly to the mission. And I think there's a clarification that's got to happen there. And then you got to like take action on it. Like, it's not like you're clearly at the point where it's like, we've got to put a lot of organic and ad and anything I can do behind this. But the way to waste time and money on ads or content is to not know who we're talking to, or to be talking to a too big of an audience. Right. You feel like really broad in that place. You know what I'm saying? And I'm, like, how do you narrow that down? Right. Like our avatar right now is, it's broader for sure, but it's basically parents of school age kids, K through 12. Like, now we get people outside of that. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people that come to us outside of that, but I don't ever think of anything other than that when I'm marketing, because we're family first, right? Empty nesters might not relate to where I am in my life. And that's actually who I have a heart for too, right? Like that's right now in my life. That's who I have a heart for. 20 years from now, when I'm an empty nester, I'll probably be going after empty nesters. You know what I mean? But like right now, that's who I have a heart for. Your heart was for the pastors and the church at the beginning of this. And by line 42 on my list, it kind of got away from that, So what are some practical steps though? Like, what do you think that you should do next? Besides avatar stuff, we can talk about that. That's getting your marketing, like Mr. Beast he's the biggest YouTuber on the planet. They spend like 2 weeks on the title of every video before they even make anything else, because they want to make sure that title and that idea for the video is totally targeted to who they want to watch that video. But we flippantly just throw titles on stuff and throw our avatar over to the side, right? Sure. So we need to dial that in. But then, like, where does that go next? Like, what do you think your next steps are?
Well, I would say just looking at the products I already have and maybe how I can repackage them in such a way to offer a free Sunday school course or something to help churches get in the door with something that's practical and real, and now to help them where they are in their church journey. And because they see it so valuable, then, for other resources, click here and
start with your pastor, your church. Like wherever you guys go, be like, hey, dude, could we put the whole church through a study? I'd love to do that. I'll spearhead the effort. What a focus group. You know what I mean? Like get all the Sunday schools to do 4 of your classes. And I think your product focus also, as we look at this a little bit differently, it's that not alone that matters more than it does the trainings and the things themselves. Any of your trainings can be put into anything publicly at all times, right? Yeah. Because they're buying into the library and the not alone thing. But yeah, I would love to see you like just go to a local pastor or two, go to your pastor and say, look, they're always looking for this. This. Be like, hey, I got this thing. I'll give it to you for free. It'll be a month of content. We can take everybody through it. Our church is going to get better because of it, because we're going to break the shackles of our spiritual gifts. That's going to lead to more people in life groups and volunteering. We're going to fix relationships. We're going to work on relationships. Our relationships are going to improve. We're going to give our church, what have you called it? Church tune up. You know what I'm saying? Like tune up the whole church at once. People are going to be released from grief. Not everybody, it's not going to solve all the world's problems, but it's like a 1 month mental health journey for our church. We're going to give the church a tune up, right? Call it the church tune up or something, and get a good focused group in there to see how that works. And then once you go through it once, even if you just do it with a small group, it doesn't matter if you're a small group, doesn't even have to be the whole church. Sure. You can now say, this is amazing. I'm going to go take this to other people. This is what happened in this small group where we did it. And then you can take it to all the churches around you. And then use LinkedIn, use TikTok, like get pastors to watch you on TikTok, get people on LinkedIn, get believers who are connected to the mission. And then you can put some even ads behind it. You know what I'm saying? To get more people to take it. I've seen more great online businesses die because they disconnected from the mission than anything technical, tactical, or strategic that they ever did. And I feel like you kind of pulled back toward that a little bit right here. You know, what in the next 24 hours are you going to take action on to make sure that you push the domino and kind of get something like this going where you're at least wrestling with this avatar, wrestling with this mission, reconnection to the mission, and wrestling with how you're going to turn this into a marketing strategy, not just something we're talking about here?
Well, I guess the next 24 hours just producing the blueprint, right? Is just thinking through, what does this look like? Now that you're refocusing on churches, what is the need within that church that I can then focus, and how can I package it to kind of outline to make sure everything's consistent with the passion, with the mission, with that. I'm a believer in, I call it train track, right? A train does not steer, it goes down the track. And as long as you build the track, the train will go where you want it to go. So
great
I like
analogy.
To focus time on building the train track to say, does everything fit within that train track piece? Because if not, you can wander from your mission, you can wander from your passion.
After you build the train track too, there's another strategy, but don't do it right now because it'll take up a lot of time. I did this strategy a couple of years ago. I just wrote down the 100 podcasts I wanted to be a guest on. Have I been on all of them? No, but man, everyone I got on helped my business. You know, that might be 100 podcast, 100 YouTube channel, 100 churches, whatever it is. You might be able to do that in the future. Real quick, Patrick, I want to talk about the deaf community and deaf support just for a second, because I know that we've been having conversations about that, because we now ever since you guys joined, we've had a few more deaf people join the community. It's been an interesting place in our community that we've had to like look at and wrestle with and grow. And we were talking, I think you and Delynn had talked about interpreting on our member calls, right? For things like that, and also interpreting in our courses, which is one thing we've been researching, because I started looking around. I was like, I don't think any online business entrepreneur has any deaf interpreting. We have captions, of course, like that we can turn on and off. And Zoom actually has an amazing feature where you can turn it on and off as well. But like, we don't have actual native language, sign language interpreting. And I was talking to Delynn the other day after she had talked to you, and my sister-in-law is actually a sign language interpreter. She works for Purple on one of the relay centers. You know what I mean? And I called her the other day, and I just wanted to put this out there for everybody, because I went on a rabbit hole, bro. You had me on a rabbit hole one day. I was talking to people, Googling stuff. I was like, how can we do this better, right? Like, and I talked to her, and in our community, we use Zoom. This is a kind of a plug for Zoom, I guess, as well. Zoom gives you phone numbers that people can call in, and I actually found out Delynn's working on a product right now. For our people who are hearing impaired or deaf, you can use the Zoom number and call in on Relay. And Relay is available to every person. Like, it's available. It's a government program for anything. All you have to do is have a phone number, and it's live, I think is what it is, right? Something like that. And so we actually are working on a thing like that. Like, every Zoom call we have, any Zoom call that a deaf person would want to interact with, they can call in on Relay and they can listen in. They can participate and be a part of it. And I was like, gosh, that's crazy. We actually reached out to some other people in our community who were deaf, and some of them didn't even know that they could do that. They thought it was only for like hospitals and stuff like that. You had to do that.
My wife has a special phone number, and you call that phone number, and an interpreter will translate the entire call. And so it rings to her phone. So she's got a regular cell phone number that you can text on, but then she's been assigned a specific phone number that you can call that number, and an interpreter will interpret anything you want. And it's free. And so, as you said, there are solutions out there. That's part of our mission, is helping people to understand that reaching the deaf community doesn't have to cost you an arm and leg, but it's creating an opportunity for them to be a part of this exciting world.
I think that is the the problem is like, I've actually in my masterminds, I've even said this, and I'm a marketer. I'm a business owner too. I'm like how many people are deaf in America alone? Like it's in the millions of people, right? Like that's a completely untapped market. I mean, it's like a lot of people I know will translate their books and courses into Spanish, but like, it's really no different to translate a course or something. You're going to record it once. You basically could hire an interpreter to do a course. We've talked about on our team too, just like strategizing. Like, I don't think you have to do every course native. It's almost like the core trainings, and then the other stuff could be captioned or transcribed, right? We used to transcribe our podcast. We stopped doing it because it was a little cost prohibitive, but now AI is a little bit better at it. You can transcribe it like a lot faster. Like, what other ways can online entrepreneurs just think outside the box? What other ways can we support the deaf community? Because I guarantee you, everybody out there, man, has people interacting with them in their online world that they don't even understand. I mean, it could be a huge percentage point of their people. So from a altruistic standpoint, hey man, let's help as many people as we can with what we teach. From a business standpoint, you're missing sales because there's people out there that could jump in. That's what I determined in my rabbit hole that I went down. But what are some other ideas that people could do? And like, do you guys know of any resources that entrepreneurs could use to help the deaf community?
Absolutely. The biggest thing is turning on the closed caption feature. All right. So when it comes to using Zoom, if you're doing a broadcast, automatically default it to closed captions. The reality is people can turn it off. There's a button. So if you're like, hey, this is too distracting, I don't want, the viewer can turn it off. But the reality is it records your entire broadcast in closed caption.
So when we turn closed caption on, it's not happening live. It just records it in the closed caption. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that's what we were. Okay. So that we had a problem with that on Zoom. We thought closed caption was going live. So there's not a live version of this unless you use something like Otter AI. Otter.ai will transcribe basically in real time, whatever it's hearing. It's not always perfect, but it's better than nothing. So that is to record. So people could come back and watch that group call later or something like that, right?
So when they go into their settings, they check the box that says, I want to see it. And then it activates that. And now you can see it on your screen. So it's a setting that each person can choose to turn it on or off to watch it. So that's the first step. Most people are using YouTube today. YouTube has the capacity of taking your video and adding closed caption automatically to it. So when you go and you load your video on there, there's a button that says transcribe to closed caption. It's free, doesn't cost you a penny, but it will scan your entire audio feed and add closed caption. Is it perfect? No. But the reality is, I can't tell you how many church sermons are out there that are fantastic, but the deaf community can't watch it because there's no closed caption. They see mouths moving, but take your fantastic sermon and when you upload it, check the box so that now we can have it. The reality is more and more people are watching closed caption, whether you're deaf or not. It's helping.
Oh, dude, I do. Because sometimes like we use Slack even. And like one of the things I love about Slack is it has real-time transcription on all audio messages. Like there'll be times I'm sitting somewhere and I can't hit play or I don't have my headphones in and I'll just read the transcription real quick, Right. So there's even added benefits of that on the closed caption. And I think also just education, my sister-in-law is a deaf interpreter. And for some reason in 10 years, I've never thought to ask her about this. The challenge is we do not think about it, but we don't realize that people who are already consuming our content online are deaf or hearing impaired. Like there's 38 million deaf or hard of hearing people in the United States and up to 1 billion people worldwide. Absolutely. Like it's not just deaf. Like if you're having any hearing loss, you're leaning in on a Zoom, you're going to lose interest. You're on a webinar, you really can't get it loud enough. Maybe it's not going to be good enough for you to stay engaged. So this isn't just it's an education thing for entrepreneurs to know that there's people out there already consuming your content. It's not when the person comes, they're already there. They're just not speaking up. And honestly, if Patrick had never been in our community, this is why we love engagement in our community, because this is a thing that like we never would have even thought about until someone brought it up. Right. Sure. So education of your community, letting people know, dude, you can zoom in on relay. That blew my mind. And Delynn did a happy dance. She was so happy to create the product because she was like, you're not the first person that's asked her about it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And we were like, yeah, you can participate live. It's not just waiting for those closed captions. You can come in, you can relay in, and you can actually be there with the community. Because watching a replay of a community call is not the same as
No.
being there and participating, you know?
Or if they don't know what's going on, they can't. And so you have people that are choosing not to be a part of the live calls because they just don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And even if that's, you know, and what makes me upset about that as the leader of this community is like, even if that's become kind of I'm used to that, it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, that's not good enough for us.
Right.
That's not good enough, because you can't build community in your business, which is the only thing that's going to sell community in the future when all this AI stuff hits, or sell your business, is that you can create a community and a group of people with people sitting over to the side waiting for their turn. Like, that's not what it's all about. It's about participation. And boy, I tell you, man, the last 2 weeks, it's so ironic that, you know, I think this might have been a God thing, because we tried to schedule this like before and we keep getting messed up on our schedules. But like, it was like, it all added up to, you know, me going down this rabbit hole before we got to talk, you know? And it was just an interesting thing, man. And it's made me think differently, dude. And I hope everybody listening, dude, will think differently as well on that. And brag on your wife. Your wife is pretty amazing, dude. She's not, she brag on her a little bit and tell everybody like her background, because it's pretty amazing. Like, she's not just, she's a leader in the deaf community. She's not just in the deaf community.
She is. She'll kill me for saying this, but because she's humble, but she was Deaf Miss Minnesota, 2001. So I kidnapped her from Minnesota to Ohio. But yeah, her passion is for the deaf community, and particularly the youth. You know, think of all the challenges that our youth go through with puberty and all of that. Who do deaf youth talk to? Like, they don't have. So, you know, they go through this whole season of, I don't know what's going on with my body, and they stay home by themselves with no one to talk to, because that. So her passion is working with youth. So here in Cincinnati area, we have a deaf school. And so she's active with that. This summer, she's scheduling a deaf camp to allow deaf kids to go to camp. Think of all the fun things you do as a kid and ask yourself, could I do that if I was deaf? So kids are terrified of going to camp because they don't know what's going on. So my wife is holding a deaf camp this summer for kids and youth to go to, and hiring interpreters to come so that they can experience the same fun that hearing kids get to, but now be able to know what's going on and be able to communicate with other deaf kids and build that community. And so she is working on that now. Our church has a deaf ministry. She is broadening our leadership team at the church to understand that deaf people can be leaders in church, as well as looking at the deficiencies of church. You know, oftentimes a pastor will give an altar call. How does a deaf person respond to for an altar call when they can't come down and communicate with you? So now our church is working on an altar ministry with deaf interpreters, so that the deaf community can respond to the altar call, can come down for prayer, and be able to be a part of that. So it's just broadening the scope of that. So she's on the leadership team now for the deaf ministry, and helping the leadership of the church understand how we can adapt our existing services within the church, and helping people to see, just because you're deaf doesn't mean you're disabled to the point you can't be a part of the church. You know, there's this mindset is, we're going to hire an interpreter and you all just sit there and watch, instead of recognizing that we're denying that individual of being an integral part of the kingdom of God and using their gifts and their talents and their abilities. And just because they can't hear does not mean that God does not have a calling on their life. And so it's helping the deaf people to understand you're called and you have a purpose, and don't allow that you can't hear to allow someone to restrict you from not being used in your giftings.
Man, online business is actually perfect for the deaf community. I mean, it's incredibly perfect, man. Like, because like, even if their business wasn't like going after other deaf people, like, there's blogging, there's incredible ways to build trainings and courses that don't even require you to be on camera or anything else. Like, and it's like all these tools that we have available to us could be opened to that community. And I'm sure that deaf people struggle more with jobs or income or things like that. And if they could open up an online side and open up something through these amazing tools that we have, I mean, that could be revolutionary to people out there, man. So that's awesome, man. Thank you so much. I wasn't gonna let you off the hook without bragging on your wife, dude. I met her in person.
No
So
problem.
so you can tell her that we did that. And one more time, man, give everybody the links to your stuff if they need anything, if they need that tune up, if they need that therapy, if they need anything like that. Tell everybody where they can find you online.
Sure. The website is lifetools.org. And if you have questions or you'd like to book me as a consultant or a life coach, you can email me at patrick@lifetools.org and can respond to any questions or questions that you have. You can do that. In 2 weeks, we're launching Tackling Life, and that's tacklinglife.org as well. And that's the online support community. So great resources there.